We're here at 2012 Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach on Saturday, ALMS American Le Mans Day, not IndyCar Day. I'll explain. But we came to watch the racing, not get into a rules roulette. There are three things going on with the rules. Number one, IndyCar has an engine change rule, and 14 of the cars have to go back 10 places because they changed engines. Number two, yesterday, American Le Mans qualifying was red flagged, and we'll explain what that was all about. And number three, we're going to focus on American Le Mans because we can't show you IndyCar action on track. There's a new rule about videoing it. But you know what? We're here to talk about the good things, like the American Le Mans GT class, which is really the racing in that series. Talk to the drivers about how those cars are being adapted to this street course. And number two, we'll talk to the IndyCar drivers like Rubens, Barrichello, and get their comments on what it's like to drive this new IndyCar. We're on the ground in the ALMS paddock. It's driver autograph signing time. We're in front of level 5. We should see if Scott Tucker, the owner-driver of that team, is signing autographs. He's a guy involved in the FTC investigation, because if I was the government, I'd sign a subpoena under his pen. Shakedown 2012, we haven't spoken a lot about IndyCar, but we're here at Long Beach, and Long Beach is IndyCar. So here we go, except when Tommy and JF went to the photographer's briefing, they learned that IndyCar no longer allows videotaping of the cars on track. It's all about the big networks like F1 and MotoGP. So we can't show you the IndyCar action. What we can do, though, is still talk about what's going on with IndyCar here at Long Beach. And it starts with the engine rules. IndyCar with the new car is trying to control costs. They've got 3 engine manufacturers now. So each team is getting 5 engines for the 16-race season for their $690,000, plus or minus some engines for Indy and testing. But the bottom line is those 5 engines have to run a minimum of 1,850 miles before they change. If they change an engine before then, it's a 10-position penalty on the grid of the next race. So Chevy had 11 engine changes because one engine blew up in testing and they were concerned about all of them, so they changed all 11 engines. Plus 3 other teams had changes too in Lotus and Honda. So 14 of the 26 cars at Long Beach are starting 10 places back. What you're hearing behind us, because we can't show you, is IndyCar qualifying. I wonder what it's going to be like for those 14 racers knowing that whatever good time they lay down means nothing because it's 10 places back. So we're not going to show you IndyCar action. I wonder if IndyCar's figured out that they really could use the promotion that shows like Drive could give them. But that's for another time. What we're going to do now, the real story is the new IndyCar. And we talked to some of the drivers to understand what it's like to drive this new piece of equipment. After that, we've got a few more tidbits that we discovered. We'll talk about that in the new car. You mentioned the new car. Different in terms of how you're approaching driving it versus, again, your past experience.
Very different. It's no power steering in it. Tires go from cold to hot, which is very different to Formula One. And the car itself, very, very hard steering with a lot of kickbacks and a heavier car with a turbo engine. So altogether, if I had to tick boxes, I would be ticking boxes all the way through and telling how different it is. It's very different.
Where's the balance of the car? Is it under your butt or is it nose?
No, the car, the tendency of the car, obviously with a heavy weight, it has some weight transfer on it, but the car, it's not on the nose. It's a little bit tricky on A3, and it picks up some understeer, so it's that's the general. I don't know if it's only a KV thing. I don't know if the Penske guys would say the same thing, but we're trying to get better on that balance and to move forward.
You know, it's a lot of unknowns, area because it's a new car, you're trying to finding the best setup ever. But every time jumping on a car, we're finding some new bits, which is very exciting. From driver's point of view, it's not much different because you just you drove and you see it, and compared to the previous session or last year, and then make it a car faster. So I'm always like the driving new car.
I don't want to fully decode what the drivers told you, but there's more going on with this IndyCar, and it starts with what they implied about weight. When Dallara designed the car, they calculated a weight balance front to rear. They missed by 5% too heavy in the rear. The race car experts tell me if you miss by 1%, it's catastrophic. 5? Oh my God. So what they did is lighten the gearbox and other pieces back there, and then redid the suspension arms to move all the weight of the car, to shift the entire body forward on the wheelbase. It's helping, but it hasn't fixed the problem. Number two, if you watch the IndyCar broadcast, you're hearing about a battery problem with the car shutting down. It ain't the battery. The generic ECU is turning off the engine and screwing up the gear selection, and they need to get that right before they go to Indy 500. The car shuts down to 100 miles an hour. Finally, Honda wanted to put a new turbo. They run single turbo versus the twin turbos on the car to improve drivability. It was an approved IndyCar part, but suddenly IndyCar said no, and they had to pull that part off the car. Not because it was illegal, they were afraid of the slippery slope of encouraging all sorts of running changes. But here's the bottom line. That's IndyCar. Let's go over and look at ALMS, where their problem wasn't technical, it was just the weather. Let's talk about America Le Mans and yesterday's qualifying session. It had an impact on how the cars were prepped for qualifying and the rules. Let's start with the conditions first. Yesterday was rainy and dry. Qualifying started in the dry. ALMS qualifying does their job by classes. So the GTC cars went out and completed their qualifying in the dry. The rest of the field did not, and that immediately brought into effect the rules red flagging the entire session. Because the rules say once you have deemed it a dry session, which they did, and stickered the dry tires, once that condition changed, everything's off because everyone has to qualify together. Now, there are a lot of teams pissed off in the paddock. One was my Alliance associate, JDX Racing, that qualified on the pole in GTC. But the bigger disappointment was all the fans that stuck around to watch the ALMS cars compete and race and qualify, got to go home alone. But we also talked to Doug Feehan, because that situation is something that's not unique and sets up the scenario of how these teams adapt to wet qualifying, wet conditions, and dry racing. Let's listen to Doug Feehan.
You know, we're going to use our standard MO. We run what's given to us, and we've got enough experience that we can deal with most any track surface.
Okay, correct what I'm right or wrong about. You can change setup between qualifying and race. You can only run, you're limited, you have to run 3 tires of what you qualify on. So if it goes dry, you have to keep those tires on, but you can change setup.
Well, if they'll declare it whether or not it's a wet qualifying session.
Okay.
All right, and once they do that, then that exonerates you from having them hold you to any sort of rule base. Ordinarily, what happens in these cases is they'll declare it a wet qualifying. You can make your tire choice, and then you're free to run tires that you want to start the race, assuming it's a dry race.
Now, we're going to show this on Monday, so I'm going to ask you, are you running a wet setup or some type of compromise, or expecting dry?
Well, we have to wait and see. We've got way too much time, and there's going to be way too many cars on this racetrack. As breezy as it is and as clear as it's looking right now, I'm expecting the line's going to be pretty dry, so it'll probably be our dry setup. There's not a huge difference between the two. I can tell you that the most important aspect of what goes on here is the traction control system. All right, how effective it is, because there's various levels of traction control.
You can dial in.
You can dial it. It's driver adjustable. So that's where the effectiveness of traction control is going to play a huge role. Secondarily to that, the wetter it is, the rear engine cars are going to have a distinct advantage to that, and you can see that in morning practice. They can get the power down very, very, very quickly.
One thing to say that Long Beach is a unique track. More importantly, we're going to talk to each of the drivers of each of the cars and find out how those cars work on the conditions that are uniquely Long Beach.
Porsche is always good on a street course. Any small road courses, and especially the ones that are low grip like a Long Beach, are good for us. We're great in the braking. We're pretty agile because we're small on wheelbase, so we can turn quickly. And then, of course, traction on the rear axle coming out of the final corner with a rear engine 911 is always good. For me, it's about the battle and navigating the traffic, trying to make a break and run for it come the last 30-45 minutes of the race. But big emphasis on strategy here. Certainly those guys are sweating it out 2 days before the race, trying to decide when they're going to dive in for that one and only short pit stop.
Well, I mean, any street course, when you show up, you got to have a car. I like a car that has a little bit of push, but you have to have a car that's got a strong front. It has good front grip, especially to the center of the corner. And so you got to have that. It's a fine balance, because you need that front grip, but you also need really good traction here, especially at Long Beach. Leading on the long straight, where of course you can do all the passing, you have the tightest hairpin in racing, really. And we really need first gear, what I call power down grip. And so we set up specially for this track with a special setup. So you're always monitoring that traction, front grip. What do you want more of?
You need a car that it really can turn, especially these tight corners. But also you need a car that can pull off quickly out of the corners, so you can have a good run. for the guys on the braking.
We, due to the rules nature, the restrictors, all that, we're probably a little down in power, but we're, I would say, one of the best braking cars here. The Ferrari overall, as the series goes for the season, is very good in high-speed corners, just to think the downforce and the balanced nature of the mid-engine car and the braking. That's really what our strengths are.
As we know, the car is but one part of the equation. As Takuma Sato reminded us, the driver makes all the difference. Let's hear from some of the drivers about what they have to do to make it work and go quick around Long Beach.
I think more so on the street courses, it's more about your muscle memory. You know, like of course you can't see around the corner, and normally what you would say textbook driving wise is when you're turning in, you're looking at the apex. When you're heading to the apex, you're looking out at the track out. Well, a lot of these corners you can't see the track out when you're even at the apex. So definitely it's a little different, but you know, for me, I think that's why there's a little bit of advantage if you've been here a lot. You have that muscle memory. You know, you turn in at this point at turn 3 or 4, and you turn in and you roll across center, and you know where you're going to go.
You kind of have to know from the previous years what to do on the car setup, but certainly you're still turning in early, picking up the throttle early, and kind of sliding across the apex to the outside wall. And you never get every last 100th here at Long Beach. Maybe that golden lap in qualifying, but what's on the other side of that golden lap is a barrier and a hurt race car. So I like this place. It's a thinking man's game. You've got to conserve the tire and certainly work the traffic.
Critical to have a good braking car, because that's really where you're going to get a pass done here. So many of the GT cars are like speeded. You know, obviously going down into turn 1 is probably the #1 passing zone. It's 3-4 cars easy wide. You really can get drafting and tuck underneath somebody.
Okay, we've heard from Corvette, BMW, Porsche, Ferrari, Aston Martin, who's here with the WEC part of this, getting ready for their Le Mans trip. But what we haven't heard from are the people at Lotus, who brought the GTE Evora to America Le Mans. And to do that, they picked the Alex Job Racing Team, an old school guy that's been around this sport a long time. You know, the Evora has been tuned by Lotus and updated for 2012 with the bottom line. There's a lot of development work necessary to adapt a car that was fundamentally built for European tracks to work on American tracks, including street races like this. So let's hear what Alex Job had to say about the car and the development that goes behind it to make it all happen.
This is a development year for us. We've got, you know, a pretty big work list so far, but the first day that we had the car on track was Monday and Tuesday at Buttonwillow this week, and we only got the car 3 weeks ago. We had to put this whole package together in 3 weeks, so it's been busy. But you know, the starting package is really good. Lotus has done an outstanding job on this car, and we're starting with a really good starting package. But we know, Lotus and us and the series, we all know that this is a development year, and we've got a lot of work to do. It's not a lot to develop really handling-wise. We've got to develop engine, we've got to develop aero package, and then just basically the whole mechanical package of the car.
Now, I understand that Lotus updated the car from last year, but they're counting on you to make this car work on U.S. tracks. So
Correct.
Tell me a little bit about where that focus has to put your team working.
Well, you know, as you know, the U.S. tracks are very bumpy as compared to the European tracks.
Like Long Beach.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it was a good reason to go to Buttonwillow, because it's very bumpy too. And we fortunately found a flaw in the rear suspension that caused a failure at Buttonwillow the first day, and then you know, fortunately we found it there and not here.
Saturday ended Long Beach. IndyCar qualifying finished, and 7 of the top 10 got penalties to go back 10 places. I have no idea who's on the pole. I think it's Dario Franchitti in a Honda. But the real action was the American Le Mans race. And I got to tell you, while it was good all through the grid, the real story was the GT racing. Once again, proving its pace. Corvette won the race, but Scott Sharp called his pass for P3, the wide track allowing him to take that position from the other Corvette. We got some great video of Aston Martin passing Falcon, as you saw. It was all very, very good. But I got to tell you, I wonder if American Le Mans should really start concentrating on GT and maybe have those other smaller categories of classes go away. But that may be too ambitious for them. At the end of the day, I hope you liked the race car prawn, all that rain racing on the trackside we showed you Sunday. We're going to cover F1 on our Friday shakedown. That's it from Long Beach. Not sure we're coming back on Sunday because since IndyCar doesn't want us to video, I may not watch them out of protest.